Hey everyone, and welcome back to the GetWellbe podcast. This podcast is designed to arm you with the knowledge and awareness you need to get and stay well your whole life. Today, I'm sharing a story of health recovery, but before we jump in, I have a quick announcement for you. I'll be closing my free discovery calls for my personalized holistic patient advocacy services at the end of April. So depending on when you listen to this, there may be just a few days left to schedule one. Head to getwellbe.com and I've got a banner across the top of my website to easily book a call. I'll then be closed for new private clients until spring 2024 due to my upcoming maternity leave. So if you're someone trying to figure out a chronic health issue or have been told many different things but really want to understand the root cause of various symptoms and reverse them, I work with people on that journey. There are a lot more details about what that entails and how I work with people at getwellbe.com, so head there to learn more and schedule that free discovery call if you think you'd benefit from my help. All right, now on to today's episode. Kelli Tennant shares her story of health recovery from initially being told that she had fibromyalgia. Some of you may know that fibromyalgia means basically unexplained pain everywhere, which basically means nothing about why it's happening. Kelli dug into the root causes and learned all sorts of other things were behind this vague diagnosis. She did a tremendous amount of physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual work to get better. Here is her story.
Adrienne, I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Kelli. I'm so happy to be here.
So should we tell people kind of how we connected?
Yeah, let's do it.
You want to do it?
Sure.
Okay.
I reached out to Kelli because I'd heard that she'd had an amazing story, or my team did, I guess. And we were able to have a phone call and hear that, yes, she did, in fact, have an amazing story of health recovery, which is what we, try to highlight at Wellbe. And I shared my story as well. And it, I think, hit home for Kelli, too.
Absolutely.
So, and then I figured out that we were both going to this conference, which was awesome, and then happened to see her name tag as she was walking by me quickly. And so we were able to chat a few days ago and meet in person. And here we are.
Wait, you're not just on Instagram. You are a human.
I know. It's like, I know that name. Why do I know that name? And we're sitting in Kelli's living room right now, and it's lovely.
I've been sick since 2005, basically, diagnosed with fibromyalgia in 2007, but never correlated any of my illness or dis-ease to emotional trauma or anything I had gone through. And it wasn't until this last year when I realized that there is a direct line. All of the things that you go through in your life, childhood, adulthood, whatever it is, that trauma sits in your tissues and it manifests in a physical illness. And so that's been everything I've been teaching about. I'm like, if people can start to understand that, that is everything. But then I'm working through my own understanding of, well, what does that mean? Why at 17 did I have mono for 8 months, which in turn gave me Epstein-Barr? And then I'm dealing with a misdiagnosis of fibromyalgia for 13 years, then find out that I have all these SIBOs and leaky guts and all these things. What is it that was causing that? And for me, I realized that it was sort of twofold. I had many different emotional traumas in my life, but the one thing that really stood out was I was never authentically who I wanted to be. I dimmed my light to fit in because I didn't feel like kids would like me if I shined as bright as I wanted to, and I was living for other people. All I did was help other people, fix them, take care of them, do what they told me I should do. And I think my body got sick because I was taking all of that on and I was living for other people and never for me. And my body was like, no, we're not doing this anymore. You're going to turn inward and you're going to reflect and you're going to take care of yourself for once. And it took me 14 years to really understand that. But once I did, I healed.
All right. Well, that is just way too simplistic of an incredible story. So I want to change gears. I think fibromyalgia is really fascinating because it is such a popular diagnosis in America, but technically it doesn't mean anything.
No.
If you look at like the derivation of the word, it basically means pain in joints, and we have no idea why. And yet we see all these fibromyalgia drug commercials and just like this mention of it, and we see, maybe famous people, oh, I have fibromyalgia, but nobody is asking or questioning what that means and why it's happening and what the root cause is. And so I'm so excited to now have you tell your story on Wellbe because I think There's probably a lot of people who've been told that they have fibromyalgia and it's really Epstein-Barr and SIBO and leaky gut or Lyme or, these other like painful joints is a symptom of a variety of things. So it's super important, I think, for people to keep digging for the root cause if they've gotten that diagnosis. So will you tell us a little bit more about your journey and your fibromyalgia?
Yeah. When I was diagnosed, I was playing volleyball at USC. So, I mean, it was a top college athlete. It was in incredible shape. My body was killing it. I was squatting. I'm doing all the things. And after I had the mono for 8 months, I came out of that and I got in the best shape of my life. And then the summer of my sophomore year, going into my junior year, we were going on this 2-week Europe trip with my team, and I was at home one day and I went from being in the best shape of my life to the next day I'm standing in the kitchen with my parents and my left leg completely goes numb and dead. I can no longer stand up straight. I'm like bent over at the island in the kitchen. I am in extreme pain. I can't see straight. And it was almost like the depression hit immediately because it was just like my body was just hit by a truck and I had no idea what was going on. And, I had been sick before, but not in that way. And it went for 6 months straight. I ended up going on this trip. I was on every drug under the sun because they couldn't figure out what was wrong. And then when we got back, it just got worse and worse and worse. And I couldn't even walk. I couldn't get up and walk 5 feet. It was exhausting. And so for those 6 months, they told me, oh, we think it's cancer. We think you broke your back. We think you tore a disc in your back. I got 3 epidurals. I was on painkillers, muscle relaxers, antidepressants, you name it. It was happening. Lyrica because of, the nerve stuff in my leg, which ended up, they gave more of that to me for the fibromyalgia diagnosis. And so I was just like going through this rabbit hole of conventional medicine. And at the end of 2007, the rheumatologist that I finally saw said, you have fibromyalgia and you're never going to be able to play volleyball again. And at 19, you're just like, what? What does that even mean? I'm on scholarship at USC. I'm doing the thing. I'm captain of the team. We just went to the Final Four. Like, what is happening? And that was it. I never played again. And I was living with fibromyalgia, which he basically said, you have so many pain points on your body when I touch you that you have this thing. And at the time, my parents didn't know. We trust doctors. We trust what they tell us. By the way, I had world-renowned USC medical doctors. So I'm thinking, these are the people. They're right. For the next 2 years, I saw more doctors and more therapists. I was given more drugs and it was horrible. At one point I'm still in college and I'm having a total identity crisis and I'm losing my mind and my body is like going crazy. I'm taking this medicine, I'm going out and drinking, I'm mixing. I don't know how something horrific didn't happen because I was doing this just trying to numb and like it was terrible. And then I was hallucinating seeing men in my apartment when there were no men in my apartment, but I was seeing them because I was on so many drugs and no doctors said anything about them. They just said, oh, keep taking these, like it'll make the pain go away. 19 years old. What are we doing? So over the next 2 years, I slowly but surely started to realize it was a really bad rabbit hole. And I went completely holistic, cold turkey off of everything. And luckily didn't have like a, horrible come down off of that. And I just started researching and figuring out what would help. So I was a vegan, I was a vegetarian. I was seeing different doctors who had different beliefs about fibromyalgia that were more holistic. So my body slowly started to kind of calm down, I think, especially after being off that medicine. That was horrible. And I was working and doing all this stuff in television. And so I was trying to balance being really sick and that. And I found paleo in 2012, which totally changed my life because it got all of the grains and the sugar and all of that out. And I was eating really clean meat. And so that was a huge change for me. I finally felt some relief. And so I've been following very strict paleo for years now, with changes doing more of an autoimmune protocol with sort of an Ayurvedic twist on it. So it's more plant-based, but I still eat meat. And that has been so important for me. But it wasn't until I found my functional medicine doctor, Dr. Lekos, who's here in Santa Monica, and he met with me for like 2 hours the first time we talked, and I love him so much. He was crying with me while I was telling him my story, just like, I don't know how you have functioned. I'm so sorry. This is so sad. You're so young. And he said, you do not have fibromyalgia. I guarantee you. We're going to do all these tests. He said, I think you have Epstein-Barr, leaky gut, SIBO, and your bacteria levels are probably off. So you just have so much bad bacteria that it's just weighing you down. So long story short, he was completely right. I had everything he thought and more, the MTHFR gene on top of that. So when we started treating for the Epstein-Barr and the gut problems, once I got rid of the SIBO, my gut was able to calm down. Then I could treat the actual leaky gut symptoms and just get really clear on my diet. And I started doing ozone therapy for the Epstein-Barr, as well as a few other things. And I've incorporated the celery juice from Medical Medium, just getting like really clean and detoxing. I had lead and arsenic in my body, so we did a methylation to get that out. And you talk about the toxic buildup, like that's what I was having. Just this, over the years, my body just built up all this crap and it finally exploded. And I had so much heat in my body. So in Ayurveda, they believe that autoimmune disease is very much from the gut, of course, but you have heat in your body. So your immune system is on fire. So until you get that fire down, your body can't heal. And so between Dr. Lekos and Marta at Surya Spa, we worked on getting the heat down in my body. So making sure I was definitely not having any alcohol, any stimulants, caffeine, anything spicy, because that really builds the heat in your stomach. So calmed all that down, and I feel now better than I have in 20 years probably. And it was all about getting to the root cause. And it was so important to do that and then do the emotional work and realize, you know, all of the different traumas that I've experienced that brought this on, as well as not living authentically for myself. When you put all of that together, that, you know, it can create a lot of problems. So you really have to work through those blocks and the energy in your body to let it go.
Wow.
That was a long story.
Kelli,
I need to drink water.
That is long, but you couldn't have made it any shorter, because each part of that is, I mean, it would be an impressive story with 1/10 of what you went through. So thank you for sharing all of that. You know, exactly what you said to me. You're doing the best version of what you possibly could with, you know, this turning lemons into lemonade. But one question I have for you, you mentioned you just went, you know, holistic. You decided to get off all this stuff. Was there some moment, or was there some, you know, video you watched or something where you just thought enough is enough, or some day when, you know, there was just one more hallucination that you just said, all right, this has got to stop?
I just kept thinking back to the day before my leg went numb. I was perfectly healthy. I felt amazing. I had never been in better shape. I was 19. How did I go from that to bedridden? So for me, it didn't make sense that I should be that young and that sick on that many drugs. And I don't know what it was within me, because my parents never lived holistically. I didn't really have any friends that were in this space at all, especially because we're all in college just drinking and partying, you know, and we're just dumb college kids. Like, we don't know. I think it was really just this knowing of there has to be something else. I just can't live like this. And once I went down that rabbit hole, it was nonstop. I mean, there's so many different beliefs within autoimmune disease of being a vegan is the best. No, paleo is the best. No, you should do keto and don't have any vegetables or any carbs. And I think everyone has to do what's best for them. I'm not saying anything's right or wrong. I just decided that I was willing to be my own guinea pig in order to find a better life for myself, because I just feel like I knew that there was so much more. There had to be something better, because what was happening was not working. It was making me crazy, and I didn't want to live like that.
You know, the sad thing is, you know, people live the way you're describing for decades.
I know.
And for you to have the wherewithal to just kind of say enough is enough and start the research process, which every single road to good health starts with research. It's pretty remarkable for a young person to just have that, which is why I thought maybe there was some sort of a catalyst, but it sounds like no, you just kind of made up your mind like that you wanted it to be different, which is...
Yeah. I think I've always been a leader since I was young. I've always been someone who will go out on a limb to try something, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but at least I tried, and I will take that on for other people. And I think that at that point in my life, without me realizing it, whether you say the God or universe, whatever, I was being set up to do bigger work. And I always say I would never take back getting sick, because I've been able to help so many people because of it. But I think that there was a bigger thing happening that I didn't see at the time, that was pushing me into this space of, it's not going to feel good, it's going to be uncomfortable, but you're going to figure this out, and you're going to do all the things that other people aren't able to do, because you are strong and you have been through things and you are able to overcome them, and we're going to use you to do this work. I truly believe, and I've never thought about that until you asked me that, but I truly believe that it was sort of setting me up for this life and the ability to do this, which I think is similar in why I relate to you so much, is you getting Lyme when you're young, and then your mom going through what she went through. Like, I just don't think things just happen. There's no coincidences, and we are given certain strengths in order to help other people. And that's such an amazing gift. And I think that's where both of us come at this from. It's not going to be easy, and it's going to be uncomfortable, but we have this platform and this ability to lead for others when they may not be able to do it themselves.
We'll be right back with Kelli Tennant after this quick message. I don't know about you, but I rarely listen to the end of a podcast these days, so I'm hopping in here to let you know that the best way to stay empowered and on top of your health is to be in the Wellbe community. So head to getwellbe.com/subscribe to make sure you're in like Flynn. On getwellbe.com, you'll learn about my personalized holistic patient advocacy work, which is closing in the next couple of days. As I mentioned, if you're listening to this sometime in May, it may already be closed, but reach out and I'll see what I can do. You'll also learn about my online programs to help you go deeper and make life-altering changes to your health, and our awesome non-toxic product database. If you're more of a social media person, let's be friends on Instagram. Find me at getwellbe. Okay, now back to Kelli Tennant's incredible healing story. You talk about being uncomfortable, and I had this thought the other day. You and I both now share some of the hardest, or the hardest things probably that we went through in our lives routinely. Mm-hmm. And some people would say, like, why do you put yourself through that? Yeah. Why are you always bringing up this kind of raw, painful stuff? Mm-hmm. On purpose. A lot of people would say, like, put that behind you, go work in, marketing for, who knows, like IBM, for example. Yeah. Just forget it all, just move on. And now, especially with social media, a lot of times I'm thinking about personal things and end up sharing them with a larger audience. And I think it does help people to see that everyone's going through a lot of the same stuff, and that you're not, the things that you're feeling, you're not alone per se. Mm-hmm. But it's also very uncomfortable sometimes to bring all of that up. But I think, I'm going to butcher the quote, if something's not uncomfortable, it's not challenging you. Totally. And I felt in my previous career that it was kind of, I was a little dead inside. Mm-hmm. And now I'm for sure more stressed, I would think, because starting your own business is stressful, but also more alive. Yeah. You're fulfilled. It's totally different. It's a very different experience. It's a stress. I imagine, I don't have one, but I imagine it's kind of like having a baby. Like, people seem to be kind of miserable going through it. Like, you're like, why are you doing this? You're completely sleep deprived. You're, dealing with something that screams constantly. And then they say they wouldn't change it, right, for the world. Yeah. That's how I feel. And I think you do as well.
Well, and I think, I commend you, and you are so brave for sharing not only your story, but your mom's story as well. Like, that is traumatic for anyone to go through. And when I was young, when I was 12, I was coming home every day from 7th grade, and I was telling my mom I didn't want to live anymore. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. And luckily my parents created an environment where I could come home and just tell them. But I was sobbing uncontrollably, and I can't live anymore. I can't be here. It's too hard. Like, this life is too hard. I don't fit in. I'm really smart. I'm very mature. I was 6'1" at that age. So it just, it was one thing after the next where I didn't feel like I belonged. And I was so glad that I was able to go to my parents. But I look at so many people that don't have the ability to have these conversations. And at the end of the day, I think we would both agree that talking to people about these issues is one of the most important things we can do, because everyone needs permission to be themselves, and everyone needs to know that they're not alone. And I felt alone for so long, and sometimes I still do, because this is sort of a lonely path, especially when you're an entrepreneur and you work at home, and like I'm literally have no pants on usually. I'm just sitting on my couch like working for 10 hours.
It can get very lonely. Left. Yeah, I agree.
Like, I just think that having these conversations that are really freaking hard is sometimes the best thing you can do, and just allow people to know that, you don't need to talk about yours. It's okay, but at least know that you're not the only one going through it.
Absolutely. So you mentioned that you did some emotional work in addition to working with your functional medicine doctor, and cleaning up your diet to heal your, let's just call it an autoimmune disorder, because fibromyalgia is, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Did you use any tools in particular to do that work? Because I know now there's different things like, emotional freedom technique, for example, or EFT, or cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. I don't know why everything has to have an acronym, but it does.
It's so funny.
Or, meditation, or some sort of a book that you might have read or something. Was there anything in particular, or you just kind of started to think about your emotions differently?
It's a great question. So when I was my job that I quit last March, I was a TV host and reporter for the Lakers and the Dodgers and other teams here in LA, and I had been there for 5 years. And in December of 2017, my body hit a wall, and I was back in bed again, unable to do anything. I was severely depressed, anxiety. I lost about 15 pounds. I couldn't eat, and just the stress just hit my body, and it was like I had been hit by a truck again. And so I went on disability and leave from work for 5 months, and at the end of that ended up quitting, because I felt like, one, my body was trying to tell me something was really wrong. And it was a combination of a lot of things. I didn't feel like the environment was healthy for me. There was a lot of toxic relationships that I had in my personal life and my professional life. And I was just surrounded by a life that I didn't want anymore. I had done my best. I had done it for as long as I could. And I got to a point where I was no longer fulfilled. I felt kind of dead inside. And the things that were happening in my life just didn't serve me anymore. And I knew that going through my own health journey for so long, that I wanted to help people, and I wanted to have these kinds of conversations. And what I was doing didn't allow for that. It was sports, obviously doesn't fit. That's fine. But I knew that I wanted to create something different for myself. So I was at home for that whole time on the couch, barely left, and in a lot of pain and very sick, but also realizing that I had some serious self-work that I had to do and discovery. And so I got off social media for that whole time, completely disabled it. So no one could follow me or send me messages. I just went completely dark off of the internet. And I started meditating every day and really tried to calm my mind. And I just started reading a ton and thinking about what would truly make me happy, and also what was triggering me. And very much in television, and you could ask anyone that's on TV, it's all about how you look. People will have the TV on mute and they'll just be judging how you look. And being a girl in television, I had become, the hot TV reporter or whatever. And that was really where the value was. And then you look at social media's impact with that as well. I was constantly looking for likes. I was just living for people to tell me, you look good. That was so good. I needed all of that validation. When on the inside, I didn't even really like myself. And I felt like, okay, well, all they care about is how I look. That must be all that matters. And I didn't take a second to think, oh, I'm actually smart and I'm good at my job and I'm engaging and I have, I'm fun and funny and whatever. I make people feel good when I'm talking to them. I didn't think about any of those positive characteristics I had. It was like, oh, you look good in this skirt. Great. And if it wasn't hot enough, then someone would tell me you need to dress hotter. And it was just kind of like this gross thing. And so I had to disconnect from needing that external validation. And that was one of the hardest things that I was dealing with for sure. So to your point of the work, it was really just becoming more aware of what was triggering me on a daily basis and who I was living my life for, and also quieting my mind, because I'm sure you believe when you have all this noise, you can't even hear yourself, let alone connect with your higher self or really hear yourself being guided. I really believe in angels and having guides, and I'm very into psychics and all of that stuff. And so for me, I couldn't even hear my own intuition because I was so obsessed with reading people's comments about me on Instagram. I'm like, how can I separate those two and really get clear on who I am and what's best for me? And that's been my journey over the last year, is getting super clear and now interviewing other people who have done it or are in the midst of doing it in order to just find themselves, truly find themselves.
Wow. It is for sure quite a journey finding yourself, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
right?
It kind of never ends, depending on when you start doing it. You can get pretty far, but it's...
I would like to give us credit for starting young. I feel
would
like we're
too.
ahead of the curve. We are so scared to share this stuff with other people when we're not feeling well and we might not know what's going on. And that was one of the biggest things for me in terms of the emotional work, was starting to talk to women that I really respected that had been through it or were maybe more emotionally evolved or had done a lot of work within, spiritual school. There's a school called USM here that a few of my girlfriends have done, and they are just very connected to that mind-body healing. And so I just started reaching out to people that I felt like could sort of lead me on that path. And that was one of the most powerful things I did, as well as getting fascia work to get the trauma out of your organs, because that's where it goes, your organs and your fascia. And when it's stuck there and you don't work it out, it's when the physical manifestations of disease happen. I've been on the table before and they're pushing into my thigh and it doesn't even really hurt. And then all of a sudden I erupt in tears, just uncontrollable, don't even know where they're coming from tears. And it's like, they're like, let it flow. And they don't stop me. They're like, don't put your hands on your face, just cry. And it's releasing this trauma. And, usually I don't even know where it's coming from, but I always feel better after. I feel like I leave there with a layer gone. So I'm a total introvert. I really need to come home and be by myself, which is, you're in my space. This is why it looks like this, because I really have to calm down. I like being in darkness. I don't have the lights on, like candles, crystals, the whole thing. And if I'm not doing that self-care routine of journaling every morning, lighting my candles, saging my apartment, and then taking baths at night, reading, really getting off social media. I only allow myself 1 hour of social media a day now.
Do you take it all at the same time or do you break it up?
I break it up. I do. You mean the Instagram?
The social media?
Yeah. I tried doing it all at once, but then I felt like I was missing stuff in the beginning of the day or the end of the day. So now I do it in 2 half-hour stints.
I think it's good to have rituals in general, as you were describing, but that should apply to device time as well.
Totally.
I haven't figured out an exact science of it, especially because I'm traveling right now. It's kind of like, you're in a lot of Ubers and you're like, oh, this seems like a good time.
Yeah.
But then of course you're missing a beautiful view. Right. So maybe it's good that I should have kept the same strict ritual, but human life, I think, is very overwhelming in general about why we're here and all the choices that we could be making. So some amount of rituals and routine helps to take a lot of that away. You can sort of get, not in a dogmatic way. You need to have spontaneity when you should have it, but the little things that you will help you every day to prevent and keep chronic health issues at bay and keep you happy and healthy in your mind, making them systematic, I think is a fantastic way to do it, because then it's like one less thing you have to feel bad about. It's like, I was on social media too much today, but I can't really remember how much I was on or when I was on exactly. Just have that feeling that I was. But if I kept it to a very structured 2 half-hour segments, I know I haven't been on it too much because that's what I set up for myself. Good health doesn't just happen to you. It's a lot of taking action, whether it's a daily meditation ritual and, describe if that's 10 minutes with a particular app, or it's, like you said, saging your apartment, or just naming maybe even just 2 or 3 things that are your absolutely can't miss. Maybe even when you're not at home, you just always, this is what you're going to do to keep yourself well and to, hashtag getwellbe.
Yeah.
What would they be?
So the first thing would be to start your morning journaling. I think in terms of the emotional component, that's really important. And I've been doing it every day this year, and I've seen it already change my life. I feel more connected to myself. I feel like I've been able to let go a lot of the noise. And the other thing that it allows for you is to start seeing trends. Because when we're thinking things, we have, millions of thoughts all the time. So it's hard to track. But when you're writing it down, I can see what themes are coming up for me day after day, or something that has triggered me or bothered me, because it's on paper and I can look back at it, or I can see it coming out onto the paper, and it can be something that I didn't even know was really bothering me. So I think that's the first thing that I would say. Saging actually really is important to me and the people that I am around. A lot of people think it's very woo-woo, but if you think about it, we're all energy. There's good energy and there's bad energy. And if you want to cleanse your space and really create a place where you can heal and you can be clear, saging is a beautiful ancient way of doing that. All you have to do is get your smudge stick, you light it, you let it, the flame goes out and then it smokes. You open the doors or the windows and you do it in a counterclockwise motion, and you just ask for the negative energy to leave, and you create intention within your space. And, even if people don't believe in that, and it's, something that you just do because you think maybe it'll help, I don't even know, that ritual of just asking negative energy to leave your space or your body and bringing in positive, that's a beautiful thing. So you don't even need to believe in the, the woo-woo spiritual thing.
Yeah, it can still work. It's why the placebo effect is effective. We have no idea what that might be doing, but the simple process of you doing it is really the medicine.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
More than the actual piece of sage or whatever it might be.
Exactly. And the last piece of that I would say is, I always recommend people that are dealing with any chronic illness, or if you have acne or breakouts or headaches or brain fog, those really all fall under chronic illness, because those are all symptoms of what you and I both go through. And to me, the thing that has worked the best is the autoimmune protocol with sort of an Ayurveda twist. So I do the autoimmune protocol, but I don't eat pork and I do less meat. I do it much more plant-based. But what it does is get all of the inflammatory foods out of your body, and it allows your immune system to calm down and not be on fire. And then you can heal the leaky gut. And I have done that on and off for years, but when I have done it, when I have severe leaky gut for at least 9 months, everything heals and I feel the best I possibly can. And that's how I eat today.
Well, that is awesome, Kelli.
Thanks.
Thank you for sharing that with us. I know that a lot of people who listen to the Wellbe podcast or, read on getwellbe.com the different interviews that are in the inspirational stories section, which is where yours will be, are looking for, a lot of them are at that point where they don't have a diagnosis yet, or they have something and they just know they're trying to figure it out. That same time when you said I started researching, I think that's when a lot of people find our platforms and they're looking for some things to start trying. Totally. And so, whether it's doing journaling or, doing the sage process in the morning, or just maybe a helpful book. I think the autoimmune protocol is a book, right? That you can access easily to start doing the diet change. All of these things are great places to start. And as we both have said, everything is different for everyone. The human body is so complicated. Keto might work better for you than this diet, or maybe you think you have an autoimmune condition, but in fact it's something slightly different. Whatever it is, these are all great places to start, no matter what diet or chronic illness issue you're going through. Taking out the bad inputs and putting in nourishing things into your body will have an incredible effect right away. Within a few weeks, I think people can see a difference. So everything that Kelli said are great places to start. And of course, the mind-body connection is the most powerful tool. So whether that's meditation, journaling, using sage, gratitude exercises, EFT work, all this stuff, it's side effect free and a great place to start. So thank you for sharing your story with myself and the Wellbe audience. It's a beautiful story. So
thank you.
You should feel really proud about how far you've come.
Thank you. And I'm so glad that this worked out and that you were here this week, because I love doing these interviews in person. And I'm just so appreciative of the work you're doing. We talked last week on the phone for quite a bit, and just looking through the way you help people advocate for themselves, I think is one of the most important things you can do. And you've done such a great job of sharing your story. And I just love that we get to connect, and to share that with our audience as well is really awesome. So thank you.
Thank you, Kelli. So that's all for today. I hope you were inspired by and learned a lot about a successful healing journey for someone who was given a fibromyalgia diagnosis. To read the written version of the story, head to getwellbe.com or check out the link in the show notes. Also, while you're there, remember that if you're someone who might benefit from having a personal, holistic patient advocate, there's just a few days left to schedule a free call to see if working with me might help you before I'm closed to new clients until the spring of 2024. If you haven't already and found this episode helpful or interesting, subscribe to the podcast. This way you'll never miss a new episode, and they'll be delivered to you whenever we publish a new one. And please share this episode with family or friends who you think might find it valuable and informative. It means a lot and helps more people find the podcast. Certainly, if you know anybody who's ever been given a vague diagnosis or even a fibromyalgia diagnosis, this would be an episode to send them. Finally, if you love the Get Well Be podcast, please leave me a quick review. If you already have, then thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and it means so much as far as getting more people to learn about the podcast. This is your host, Adrienne Nolan-Smith, and thank you again for listening to the Get Well Be podcast.